October 1919, the World Series of Baseball. The Chicago White Sox versus the Cincinnati Redlegs. Thousands of fans fill the stadiums. Millions more follow the action over Western Union telegraph lines. They expect the mighty White Sox to crush the lowly Reds. What they witness, however, is the unthinkable. In a best-of-9 series, the White Sox fall to the Redlegs, 5-3. It is a series White Sox fans decide to forget. It becomes a series nobody will forget. In the months following the games, the story comes out. The World Series of 1919 was fixed. The White Sox suddenly become the Black Sox, fixers who conspired with professional gamblers to throw the World Series. 8 men in all. Eddie Seacott, pitcher. Lefty Williams, pitcher. Buck Weaver, Chick Gandil, Swede Risberg, Fred McMullen, infielders. Happy Felch, outfielder. Shoeless Joe Jackson, outfielder.
Could you let us through, folks? Let the lady by, please. Thank you.
Say it ain't so, Joe. Say it ain't so.
I'm afraid it is, son.
It was the only World Series in history to be replayed in the courtroom. The whole world and a judge and jury wanted to know how the best team in baseball threw the whole thing. So in 1921, the White Sox players, now known as the Black Sox, came to the courtroom so that justice could be served.
The defendant is charged with conspiracy to defraud the public, conspiracy to commit a confidence game, conspiracy to injure the business of the American League, conspiracy to injure the business of Charles A. Comiskey, proprietor of the Chicago White Sox.
Which was fancy language for putting in the fix. And 8 of the Sox players had to face the charges. But in the mind of every fan who witnessed the scandal, each player was on trial for himself, just him, to prove his guilt or innocence. Today it's Shoeless Joe Jackson's turn. That's right. Take a seat in the jury box and hear the case. Decide for yourself. Besides, you got me to help you out. The name's Abe. Abertel. Maybe you heard of me. Maybe not. I used to fight bantamweight out of New York. Nowadays, well, I'm a gambler by trade. And let's say I had a little something to do with the 1919 series. Let's say I had a lot to do with it. Was the series fixed? Has a baseball got stitches? What you want to know is if Joe Jackson was in on it. Me too. So listen to the case they're going to bring against Joe, and then you be the judge. Here we go. Glad you're back. That's the main prosecutor, George Gorman, up there right now.
2 colors. That is what we have, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the court, the colors white and black. White for the stockings of the team from Chicago. Black for the Black Sox of 1919. We now come to Joe Jackson. Shoeless Joe Jackson. He's a man out of an American fairy tale whose ability to throw and hit a baseball turned him into a star, a hero. But wait, there is no happy ending to this fairy tale. A year after the World Series, Joe Jackson, the same Joe Jackson, with the long face and bleary eyes, testified before a grand jury. And the whole sorry, sordid story of betrayal, of greed, of black deeds came out. For the sum of $5,000 cash money, $5,000, Joe Jackson spat on everything he stood for. From the white of a shining star to the black of a common fixer. Shame. Such is the shame. The state will produce sworn testimony from gambling conspirators, knowledgeable witnesses, and a confession from Joe Jackson himself.
Objection. My client has repudiated that confession. You won't get to first base with that confession.
I'll make a home run with it.
You may get a long hit, but you'll be thrown out at the plate.
Give or take some of that flowery language. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. Oh, the state had a pretty good case. A lot of money was wagered on that series. I made a few dollars myself. Yeah, but some suckers weren't so lucky. And some of them will testify just to nail the guys who cleaned them out. Yeah, so there's damage to be done here. Hey, but hold on. One of Joe Jackson's attorneys up now. Name's James J. Ahern. Big LaSalle Street sharpie.
Your Honor, kind ladies and gentlemen of the court, I won't bore you with what you already know or give you a coloring lesson. The man sitting there at the table is Joe Jackson, the great Joe Jackson, as fine an athlete as walks this earth. Yes, we all know about the scandals of 1919 and the names of the players involved. The charges were conspiracy and fraud. Fine, but not for Joe Jackson. The man sitting there is not a conspirator and a defrauder. Shoeless Joe Jackson is a victim, an unwitting, unwilling victim. The defense will show that no clear proof exists of any conspiracy involving Joe Jackson, either on the field or off. The defense will show no intent to defraud. The defense will show that all these charges against this great American athlete are preposterous.
So who you gonna believe? Let's start from the beginning. The first guy on the stand is Charles A. Comiskey. The old Roman, they called him, on account of the size of his beak. Being the owner of the Sox, a lot of people blame the whole thing on him.
Yes, I've been in baseball almost all my life. 45 years in the great game as a player, a manager, an owner. One of my prides is the beautiful stadium on 35th Street and the enjoyment we bring our fans. Yeah, I've gotten no favors. I'm a self-made man.
Another pride of your career was the 1919 White Sox team?
Wonderful combination. Greatest team I ever had. The best bunch of fighters. With them, no game was lost until the last man was out.
But I'm puzzled. Isn't it true that the White Sox are considered the worst paid club in baseball?
That is not true.
Isn't it true that your players were near to mutiny because of your penny pinching?
I paid a great deal for those players. You can't pin penny pinching on me.
You paid a great deal to buy the players, but you did not pay them a great deal in salary.
That's a lie. Why, Eddie Collins received $14,500.
Yes, Mr. Comiskey. Eddie Collins made $14,500. But tell the court the salary of Joe Jackson.
I don't remember. You can ask my business manager.
No need. You paid him $6,000, Mr. Comiskey. $6,000 to perhaps the finest player in the big leagues.
That's a business matter.
Then let's find another matter. Were you told by several people, including your own manager, that the series was fixed?
Well, rumors were going around. But I let it be known that if I got any information about anyone being crooked on the team, I was going to put them out of business.
Was Joe Jackson named in those rumors?
Yes? Yes, I heard he was one of the 8 that sold us out.
Your witness.
Mr. Comiskey, you paid $65,000 for Joe Jackson's contract in 1915, is that correct?
Yes, I certainly did. A great sum of money.
Well, obviously you thought a great deal about his abilities. In the 5 years that he was a member of your ball club, you ever have reason to believe that Joe Jackson wasn't playing well?
No, I cannot say that Joe ever slacked.
Not even during the World Series of 1919?
No, not even then.
Yet you saw fit to stop his paycheck, isn't that right?
He was named as one of
Named by whom? By a newspaper? By a witness?
several sources.
Rumors, just rumors, isn't that what you said? The kind of rumors you hear every year around World Series time?
I know what I heard, and I acted upon it.
Now let me ask you about the morning after the final game of the World Series. Did Joe Jackson attempt to see you in your office?
Many people come to see me. I can't remember.
Surely you do remember, Mr. Comiskey, because Joe Jackson stood outside your office and told you he had something to say about the World Series.
I did not speak to the man.
No, you didn't. Joe Jackson was told to go away, wasn't he, Mr. Comiskey? Let me recite some figures for you, Mr. Comiskey. In 1919, your ball club earned a profit of $500,000. And in 1920, the year after the great scandal, your ball team earned a profit of almost $1 million, twice as much.
Objection. Mr. Comiskey's finances are not relevant.
Sustained.
Not relevant. My client is charged with injuring the personal finances of Mr. Charles A. Comiskey, yet Mr. Comiskey gets richer all the time. Isn't it true that you charge your ball players 50 cents to launder their uniforms?
You can't get away with that with me. You can't belittle me.
You're trying to belittle this great ball player.
Order here. Counsel, I'll not have you malign the witness.
I'll not be maligned.
Dismissed.
Keep your shirt on, Charlie. Now, with Comiskey out of the way, the next thing is to see if Joe was laying down in the series. Only a baseball man would know that. And there's no better expert than Kid Gleason, the White Sox manager.
Mr. Gleason, Kid, you've been in baseball all your life?
Yeah, playing and managing.
When the 1919 series began, what were your honest feelings about the outcome?
Take him at 5, maybe 6.
So when the White Sox lost the first game by the score of 9-1, what then were your feelings?
I was pretty sore.
In fact, Kid, didn't you confront Eddie Seacott, the losing pitcher of the day, and Swede Risberg, your shortstop, in the hotel lobby that night?
I saw them both, yeah. I was hot. They were sitting there with big grins on their mugs. I called Eddie a SOB and Swede too. I said anyone who couldn't see what you two bums was doing on that field was either blind, stupid, or a damn liar.
Objection. Swede Risberg and Eddie Seacott are not on the stand now. This is Joe Jackson's day in court.
Objection sustained.
Did Joe Jackson approach you on the bench before that first game, Kid, and say he didn't want to play?
Yeah, he did. I told him he was playing, and that was that.
Now, why would Mr. Jackson, a star player, not want to play?
I don't know.
Sure you do. You knew something foul was going on, and you knew Jackson knew it too. Slump. You said the team was in a terrible slump?
Worst slump I ever seen.
Tell me, Kid, with all your years in the game of baseball, can you tell if a guy is laying down in a game?
In a minute.
One more thing. Were you aware of Joe Jackson's salary?
I guess I was.
Of course you were. It was $6,000 for the year of 1919. Now, would you say that a player of the caliber of Joe Jackson might be disappointed with a salary of $6,000?
I'd say he had a beef.
A beef? Come on, kid. A player like Joe Jackson, being paid peanuts in salary on the best team in baseball, playing in the World Series, and all you can say is Joe Jackson had a beef?
He had a big beef, I don't know.
That's all, Your Honor.
Mr. Gleason, you are some baseball man. I mean, the way you pull the White Sox in the first place with Cleveland breathing down your back.
We stung him nice, eh?
Now, you say you can tell in a minute if a ball player isn't doing his best. Now, really. In the game of baseball, can you tell me why a player hits a home run one time and strikes out the next?
I know what I saw.
Indeed, you did. You saw Joe Jackson. Do you remember his statistics for the series, kid?
He did okay.
I should say he did. Let me recite his statistics. 8 games, 32 times at bat, 12 hits, including the only home run of the series, 6 runs batted in, and a batting average of .375, an average that few men ever attain. Would you say that was just okay, Mr. Gleason?
But we weren't winning.
At any time during the World Series, did you tell Joe Jackson that he was laying down, that he was playing badly?
No, I didn't.
You didn't? Of course you didn't. Come on, Mr. Gleason, tell the court exactly if you think in your heart that Joe Jackson played the fix.
I can't say. Oh, sure, Joe played good. He was Joe Jackson, one of the best players I ever seen play the game. One of the best. He was too good a player to keep down. Was he in on it? Well, he was sure acting funny, wanting to be benched like that right at the start, and he was mentioned with the others. But I gotta admit, it was hard for me to believe. A guy like Joe. So I can't say. I wished he weren't. I wish I wasn't sitting here today. You said in my heart, huh? Well, all I can say is it'd break my heart to know he was in with him.
So far, so good. You're paying attention and hearing a nice story. Yeah, well, now it's time to bring out some folks not so nice. As I said, the series was lousy with gamblers. And some of those boys aren't such sweet characters. A present company excluded, of course. The state got a hold of Bill Burns. Sleepy Bill Burns from Texas or somewhere. You're about to get an earful from one of the slimiest guys around.
I do.
This Bill Burns was a ball player himself once, but not a very good one, I heard. I also heard he liked to carry a gun a lot. Sleepy Bill made some money in the oil business and figured to double it in gambling, which is how he got involved in the 1919 series.
Mr. Burns, where is your home?
San Salvador, Texas.
In September 1919, you came to New York and you met some White Sox ball players, is that correct?
I sure did. The first meeting was with Eddie Seacott. It was casual. Eddie said if the Sox took first place, he had something good for me. Then 2 days later, I met Eddie again, and he was with Chick Gannell. They said for $100,000, why, they'd throw the World Series any way we wanted.
And what did you say?
I said I'd see what I could do.
And what did you do?
I lined things up.
And you returned to the players?
It was the morning of the first game in the hotel room in Cincinnati. I told him I had $100,000 to handle the fix and the names of the men that were going to finance it.
Who were the financiers?
Arnold Rothstein. That boy is a walking bank. And his bagman, Abatel.
And you acted as a representative for the players?
You got it. I asked him what was I going to get out of being the middleman, and they agreed to give me a player's share.
Now, Mr. Burns, when did you first see any money?
After the White Sox lost the second game, I went to Abatel's room in the hotel. There was money all over the place. It was laying on the bed 4 to 5 inches thick, and there were suitcases stuffed with bills.
How was the money to be divided?
Well, I was supposed to get $40,000 for me and the players, but Abatel only gave me $10,000. I said, come on, there's 8 of them, they won't take it. He looked at me and he said, they'll take it. So I brought it to Gandil, the second sacker. He said, are we being double-crossed? I says, no, chick, you ain't. So the next day, Gandil said that the game would go like the other 2. The Sox would dump it. So I put a good amount against the Sox. But they won the game 3-0, and I was wiped out.
One final thing, Mr. Burns. When you met with the players in the Hotel Sinton in Cincinnati before the first game of the World Series, was Jackson present?
I didn't see him there, but Lefty Williams said he was representing Jackson.
There was never any doubt in your mind that Joe Jackson was in on the fix?
No, never.
So now you know. I told you I had a little something to do with the fix. Yeah, but you won't see old Abatel there on the stand. This Burns guy you see got suckered on that third game. Lost his shirt and he saw. So he's squealing. But wait a minute. Is Burns on the level? Yeah, well, that defense attorney Ahern can't wait to sink his teeth into him.
San Saba, Texas. Mexico. Didn't you go down to Mexico recently?
I was in Mexico.
I suppose you went to work for the famous outlaw Pancho Villa while you were down there.
No, I wouldn't work for Villa. And I wouldn't work for you either, Mr. Ahern.
You knew you were coming under indictment when you came to Chicago?
Yep.
And that didn't worry you, did it?
Nope.
On the morning of the first game of the World Series in Cincinnati in 1919, you proposed the conspiracy of the players.
I did not.
You talked of an offer of $100,000.
That was a player's proposition.
Where were you going to get your money for fixing the series?
From the players and also Abatel.
You were going to get a slice from the gamblers, too. Did the players know you were getting money as a gambler?
It was none of their business.
Well, you were afraid if you told them you wouldn't get your share, weren't you? Mr. Burns, you lost all your money betting against the White Sox because they won Game 3. Then you told the players you'd spill the beans if they didn't pay your share, didn't you?
That's right.
Boys double-crossed you, didn't they?
Yep. They decided to win Game 3 all on their own.
And is that a reason for testifying?
One of them.
Well, then it's not for the purity of baseball.
Well, they double-crossed me. I would have been the fall guy for the whole bunch.
Now, do you think you're even with the boys now?
I'm liable to be before I leave here.
You don't like me very much, do you, Bill?
Sure I do, Jim. You're a smart fella. And I wish we had someone like you at the head of this deal. We'd all be rich.
Well, let's make sure of a few more things before you slip off back to Mexico. When you first spoke to Seacott and Gandil about the fix, how many other players were mentioned?
6, I believe.
Joe Jackson?
Not then. Later on, he come in.
Did you ever meet or see Joe Jackson during any of your meetings?
Don't believe I did.
Now, let me get this straight. Joe Jackson was never present at any of the meetings in which the fix was discussed.
No, never.
When you delivered the $10,000 to Chick Gandil after Game 2, was Joe Jackson there?
No.
Did you ever meet or give Joe Jackson money during this time?
No, I never did.
That's right, Mr. Burns. You never did.
After Burns, you need a breather. Just as well. There's as much action out here in the lobby. Look at the crowd. People want to see someone famous. You see all the big writers. That Lardner, he's my favorite. Say, now there's a familiar face. Over there. Yes, sirree, that's Katie Jackson, Joe's wife. She's trying to get back into the courtroom without the newsboys spotting her.
Mrs. Jackson? How's Joe holding up?
He's fine. He's all right. He just wants this whole thing over with. He's a ball player and he ain't never been nothing but. He wants to get back into the game.
How do you feel, Mrs. Jackson? Does it hurt much?
Sure, it hurts me. It hurts me to sit there and listen to all things Joey is supposed to have done. He was never in with them other players. He never knew the gamblers like they did. They tricked him. Joey don't know how to lie, and he don't know how to sneak about. So you can write what you want. You can write that Joey laid down. You can call him a fixer and a grifter. You can write that he took the only thing he ever wanted to do in his life and threw it down the drain. But if you do, you'll be nothing but liars. Disgraceful liars.
Well, now it's come down to the last round in this fight. Shoeless Joe is going on the stand now. And you're either gonna buy what Joe's selling, or you're not gonna buy it.
Mr. Jackson, tell us a little bit about yourself, will you please?
Well, I was born in 1887 near Greenville, South Carolina, and reared in Brandon Mills, South Carolina, where we worked in the cotton mills. First started playing ball for the Brandon Mill team. Strong suit was throwing and hitting, and I got to be such a good hitter that one of the old boys back home made me a bat and stained it with tobacco juice, and I call it my Black Betsy, and it's kind of a trademark. You know, they come to name me Shoeless Joe on account of one time I got a new pair of spikes that didn't fit, so I took them off and played barefoot for a time, and somebody yelled out that I was shoeless, and the name stuck. Well, I first signed with Philadelphia in 1907, and then I went to Cleveland, and then to Chicago White Sox in 1915, where I have played until all this happened.
Do tell the court about the hairpin.
Oh, well, when I was a younger player, a girl gave me a hairpin for good luck, and ever since then I keep some hairpins in my back pocket, and they bring me luck up to the bat.
In your life of hard work and then with baseball, you've had no formal education, is that right?
Yes, sir.
A yokel, a country yokel. You heard that from fans and players alike, is that right?
Yeah, I heard it.
And that kept you from fraternizing with several of the other players. In fact, you were never in with the inner circle of White Sox players like Eddie Seacott and Chick Gandil.
No, sir, I was never in with them.
Have you ever come in contact with gamblers?
No, sir. Not like
Before the series, had you ever met Mr. Bill Burns?
No, sir.
But you knew something was up concerning the series.
I heard stories and rumors, and I was approached by Chick Gandil and Swede Risberg, our shortstop.
And Gandil offered you money to go in and fix?
Yes, sir.
And what did you tell him?
I said no, I didn't want no part of it. And then he said it was going through anyway if I was in or out.
What else did you learn?
Well, Lefty Williams told me that there was a frame-up on the series with some Eastern gamblers, and they'd used my name.
Did you ever talk with Lefty Williams again?
Yes, sir. The night after the World Series was over.
What was said?
Williams came into my room in the hotel and held out an envelope, and he said, "Here, do you want this?" And I said, "No, what is it?" And he pushed it on over to me, and he told me why it's money. And I said, "I don't want your money." Because he said it was part of what he got in the frame-up with gamblers.
And what else?
Well, we had a few hot words there, and he left the envelope on the bed, and I told him I was going down to see Mr. Comiskey about this.
And did you go to see Mr. Comiskey?
Yeah, I got there, but the front office door was locked.
Was anyone there?
Yes, sir. Harry Grabner, Mr. Comiskey's secretary. But he slammed the window in my face and said, "Go home. We know what you want."
And did you ever talk with Mr. Grabner or Mr. Comiskey about this?
Yes, sir, with Mr. Grabner. He said the White Sox had made an investigation, and then he said, "We know Williams gave you $5,000. So I asked Mr. Grabner, now what was I going to do with it? And he said, "That bunch of bums, why, you should keep the money, Joe."
Now let's be certain about this. Williams gave you the money after the World Series was over?
Yes, sir, the night after the last game.
Now, one last thing, Joe. Were you ever told to reveal what you knew about this scandal?
Why, Mr. Comiskey's lawyer told me I should make a clean breast of things. He said if I acted like I was sorry, I wouldn't get in trouble.
He told you would not be prosecuted?
Yes. He said if I talked, I would get off.
Were you drunk when he told you this?
About half, I guess. I'd been boozing.
Did they give you anything to read and sign?
I got a lot of stuff. I don't know what it was.
And you, of course, did not read what you signed?
No. They'd given me their promise I wouldn't be prosecuted. I'd have signed my death warrant if they'd asked me to.
Thank you, Joe.
Quite a story, huh? A lot of people thought Joe was tricked by Comiskey's lawyers. They wanted to pass the blame onto the players and make it look like Comiskey was pure as snow. Maybe so. Maybe not. Anyway, that's Joe's side of it. Now let's hear the prosecutor's version.
Mr. Jackson, your talent for playing baseball has made you a famous person in America. Was your salary in 1919 $6,000?
Yes, it was.
Don't you think that you were worth more than $6,000?
Wouldn't you feel that way if you was me?
I surely would. So tell me, were you ever angry towards Mr. Comiskey, the man who was underpaying you?
Objection! Objection!
Sustained.
On September 28th, 1920, did you appear before a Cook County grand jury and testify concerning your conduct in the 1919 World Series?
Objection. That testimony has been repudiated. It cannot be entered.
Overruled.
At this time, I must announce that the signed statement made by Mr. Jackson before the grand jury has disappeared. I personally have never seen it, and I have no choice but to believe it was stolen before I took office. I do not know where it is or what happened to it. However, I have secured material from that statement, and I ask the indulgence of the court to quote from it as I further examine the witness.
Objection. Without the original statement, that material is inadmissible hearsay.
Gentlemen, approach the bench.
This is a highly unusual proceeding, and I'm forced to make an unusual ruling. In consideration of our jury, I'm going to allow Mr. Gorman to make use of what he has obtained of Mr. Jackson's testimony before the grand jury.
I'll appeal on this alone, Your Honor.
I'm sure you will, Mr. Ahern.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, my questions will be taken from the grand jury proceedings, and your answers will be, to the best of your ability, those that you gave at that time. Who mentioned the idea of a fix to you first?
Chick Gandil.
What did he say?
He first asked me would I consider $10,000 to frame up something, and I asked him frame what, and he told me, and I said no.
Then what did he say?
He just walked away from me. And then when we got back to Chicago, he asked me again, and I said no again. And on the bridge where you go into the clubhouse, He said I could either take it or let it alone, but the fix is going through anyway.
And from what you told the grand jury, finally, you said you would take part?
I told the grand jury that, yeah, but
You
Mr.
testified
Comiskey's-
that you were told about a meeting with gamblers before the World Series. Who told you of that meeting?
Well, I guess Lefty Williams told me.
Who promised you the money? Tell us as you told the grand jury.
I didn't want no money, but Chick Gandil kept bringing it up.
What sum did Gandil promise you? It was $20,000. Didn't you testify that you were promised that amount?
Well, I might have said that, but if I
But after
did,
the first game
just-
was lost, you didn't receive any money. Is that correct?
No, I did not. No, sir.
Much has been made of how well you batted in the series, but little of your fielding. I am going to quote from your testimony about fielding. Quote, "When a Cincinnati player would hit a ball to my territory, I'd fail to catch it. But if it would look too much like crooked work to do that, I'd be slow and make a short throw to the infield. My work netted Cincinnati several runs they would not have had if I'd been playing on the square." Unquote. You said that, Mr. Jackson?
Objection.
Overruled.
I didn't make no misplays.
No. You didn't make misplays. You also did not make the plays. Were you ever paid?
No. Well, not exactly. Lefty Williams brought the envelope to my room in the hotel and threw it down.
Now, this is very important. When did you tell the grand jury that Lefty Williams gave you the money?
I don't know.
You testified that it was after the fourth game. That's what you said.
Well, I meant the last game.
That's not what you said, Mr. Jackson. Wait a minute. Was Mrs. Jackson present?
Mrs. Jackson? Well, let me see. I think she was in the bathroom. I'm pretty sure.
So Mrs. Jackson knew that you got $5,000 for helping them throw those games?
I guess she did, yes.
What did Mrs. Jackson say?
She felt awful bad about it. Cried about it a while.
So you kept the $5,000?
Yeah, I did. Look, but the series was all over.
All
And then I
over?
went down-
Nonsense! It was only the fourth game. And weren't you very much peeved that you only got $5,000 and you expected to get $20,000?
No, sir. I was ashamed of myself.
How did you feel after you spoke to the grand jury?
I told him my side of it. I said I'm an innocent man.
An innocent man. Tell me, Mr. Jackson, how did that $5,000 in cash feel when you knew it was dirty money?
Objection.
You heard me. Dirty money. Gained when you deliberately threw the World Series down a hole.
Objection, Your Honor.
Counts. How did it feel, Joe, out there on the field, when you looked up at the grandstand at those fans and knew they were all just a bunch of suckers?
Objection.
I can't hear you,
This
Joe.
cannot go on.
I can't hear you.
Mr. Gorman, I'm warning you. The court will not tolerate such outbursts.
I apologize, Your Honor. Could you tell us, Joe, what you did after you left the grand jury proceedings?
I went out and got polluted.
All that's left now is for the boys to sum it up. Prosecutor Gorman will pound a few more nails into old Joe's coffin. And then Mr. Ahern will pull them all out. And then it's your ball game.
What more convincing proof could we have than the statements made under oath before a grand jury by this ball player? Joe Jackson said he sold out the American public for a paltry $5,000. He kept the money, but his conscience would not let him keep quiet. Jackson told the grand jury he got $5,000 after the fourth game. Not after the series was over, as he says now, but after the fourth game, a time when the White Sox, the overwhelming favorite, had lost 3 of those 4 games. The claim is made for how well Joe batted. Yet in his own testimony, Joe Jackson told how he played in the field. Why, if a ball came to his territory, he said he'd muff it if he could. The crime warrants severe punishment under the law. Now, the attorneys for the defense will ask for mercy. They will point out that Jackson only got $6,000 a year for his services, and that is a shame and an embarrassment to Mr. Jackson's employer. And I will ask you, what better reason is there for a man to yield to the temptation of easy money? I tell you, Joe Jackson, with his own words and the very fact of the money he took as the series was in progress, has condemned himself. And finally, I remind you of the spectacle of the public going to the World Series, believing it was on the square. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, they went to see a ball game, but all they saw was a con game. I ask you to find the defendant, Joe Jackson, guilty. Guilty on all counts.
Mr. Ahern?
I'll try to be brief. I note that the prosecutor suggested that I will ask for mercy on behalf of Mr. Jackson. No, I won't plead before you. I will only ask that you clearly perceive the issues of this trial. Now, we heard from Mr. Kid Gleason, and Mr. Gleason told us he never charged Joe Jackson with holding back during the series. We heard from Mr. Charles A. Comiskey. Oh, and I must confess sympathy for this poor, unfortunate man who was forced to pay Joe Jackson, one of the finest ball players in history, a salary comparable to that of a journeyman. Now, the state charges Joe Jackson with conspiring to injure the finances of Mr. Charles A. Comiskey by throwing the 1919 World Series. And yet we see that Mr. Comiskey's revenues for the following season nearly doubled. Such an injury. And then Mr. Burns, Mr. Sleepy Bill Burns. Here is a gambler, a liar, a con man, a fortune hunter, a rattlesnake up from Texas. Indeed, why isn't Mr. Burns on trial here? And also the men he admits were behind the fix. Where is Arnold Rothstein, the millionaire gambler named as financier in this scandal? Why wasn't he indicted? And where is Abe Attell, Mr. Rothstein's sneaky little bagman? Why was he allowed to escape? Now, Mr. Burns admits he never even met Joe Jackson. He only heard he was part of this slimy little scam. Mr. Burns reminds me of a drink of moonshine. Looks good, but when you drink it, you get a stomach ache. Finally, Shoeless Joe Jackson himself. He testified before you because he has nothing to hide. He spoke of his humble beginnings, and I suggest you see the real meaning here. This man has done much, achieved great things, but I suggest he never felt comfortable with his fame. I think you can see the pressures he faced when unsavory things began to happen around him. In 8 games of the World Series in 1919, Joe had the highest batting average, the most runs batted in, and no errors in the field. Now, how could Joe Jackson be a fixer and play the game so superbly? He admits he took money. He insists it was given to him after the series was over by Lefty Williams, a fellow ball player. "I don't want your money," Joe Jackson said. He tried to give the money back to Mr. Comiskey, and when that failed, he kept it. And later, an agent for Mr. Comiskey told him he did the right thing in keeping the money. Finally, when news of the scandal broke a year later, Joe was tricked into appearing before the grand jury. Yes, tricked by the lawyers of Mr. Comiskey, who told him if he testified, he would not be prosecuted. How unfortunate, but how understandable. Joe just wanted to continue to play baseball. The lawyers told him if he confessed, all would go well. Joe was afraid. He became intoxicated to get through the ordeal. His confession, which in the clear light of day he totally repudiated, was not a confession at all. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I suggest that the only crime that Joe Jackson was guilty of at that time was the crime of trusting other men. I apologize, I have not been brief. I could not be when the fate of this great man, this fine athlete, was in the balance. Look at him now. Consider what has been said and dismiss these ridiculous charges.
You have heard the charges in the case involving Joseph Jackson. You are asked to determine whether the defendant is guilty or innocent of conspiring to injure the business of the American League and the business of Charles A. Comiskey. You are asked to determine if the defendant is guilty or innocent of conspiring to defraud the public and conspiring to commit a confidence game during the World Series of 1919. I remind you that while you should consider all that you've heard, you must still answer the charges. Consider those charges and the testimony carefully, and then submit your verdict.
So that's the ball game. You heard the man. Was Joe Jackson a chump, or did he throw it? Guilty or innocent? It's up to you. Oh, by the way, you might like to know that the jury back in 1921 found Joe and the other players innocent. But the commissioner of baseball didn't care. He banned all 8 of them, including Shoeless Joe Jackson, forever. That's the way it goes. Well, it's time for me to run now. If you're ever in the area or feeling a little frisky about a wager, come look me up. I'm in the book. See you around. Oh, as a friend of mine in the Windy City likes to say, take it easy, but take it.